So what are the big bullet points for this? Like, what are we kind of want to,
Don't be an idiot.
I like that bullet point. Let's hammer that one home. That should be the name of the podcast episode. Boom. End of episode, done. Yeah.
Welcome to the Pull Up a Chair show. I'm Dr. Christy Wick.
And I'm Dr. Jake Grenacher.
And we are here to let you in on our in-depth conversations on chiropractic practice, personal development, leadership, and business excellence.
If you are needing inspiration, motivation, clarity, or permission in any of these areas of your life, we're glad you're here. Pull up a chair.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Pull Up a Chair. We are excited to share some really important strategies with you today. So I am going to have Jake start with this one was his idea. So he's going to tell you a little bit about why this idea was important for us to bring to all of you, and then we'll go from there.
And that's why I love this show that we do. This isn't like some long drawn up strategy. It's stuff that we're dealing with right now. And it's like, what do we need to talk about today? Let's talk about raising your prices, because this is a time of year, January, whenever you're watching this, we're recording this in January of 2025, that time of year when if you're going to raise prices, it's a common time that prices get raised. And really it's time to kind of look in the mirror to see if, do my prices need to be raised? And if they do, how do we do that?
Yeah, I am always of the mind of really everyone should be increasing their prices somewhat, at least every 2.5 to 3 years at minimum. Obviously, raising your prices every single year is probably never going to feel good to you. It's not going to feel good to your patients. So it's really important to make these decisions strategically so that you can then feel like you have a healthy margin. You made the right decision, and now you can, ride with that for 3 years or so. Speaking from experience, having had to, increase prices too close together, obviously those are difficult conversations, and those are places that you don't want to be in as a business leader. You don't want to be in as a healthcare provider where you are the person potentially dictating a lot of those conversations with your team. And so we are always of the mind of how do you set yourself up for a better long-term play, and just be thinking about that from minute one, because probably many of you listening have maybe not increased your prices in a long time, or you're afraid to do so, or, you feel like you're stuck in a model that's just not working for you. And there's lots of different parts and pieces that make people struggle with this concept. And so we want to talk a little bit about what you can do to just get yourself on a good trajectory once and for all. And so then it's just a repeatable, anticipated business strategy.
And I like how you said that, Christy, because once you get this right and you have it, then every 2 years, increasing it $5 or 10% or whatever the number is, isn't hard to do. You know what I mean? But most of the people we talk to surrounding this are way overdue, so have to do something a little more drastic to right size. And we want to make sure we address both of those. But like getting in the cadence, the idea that like this is normal, increasing your prices every 2 to 3 years is normal, like getting in that, like that's something you should be doing. I always say that look at other businesses that are out there, right? I think every time I go to Starbucks, my coffee is more expensive. Like they didn't let me know, they didn't send me an email, they don't feel bad about it. Their cost of services, goods, and employees and staffing and cups and all that are going up, and your coffee is now more expensive. Gym memberships, whatever the thing is that prices just go up, and we are consumers of that. Yet when the shoe is under their foot and we're the ones setting it, sometimes it's tougher to do. So we want to walk through some strategies on how to do that. But I hope you understand the first thing you want to do is really why. And why you need to do it is, if you haven't, in previous episodes and other things Christy and I have done, we've talked about your cost of doing business, your cost of delivering adjustment, what it costs you to be open. I think the first thing you need to do is really look into some of those numbers to understand that, like, wow, what is it really costing me to deliver an adjustment and to keep our office open, do some of those kind of things. Because when you look at that, you may realize, yes, a price increase is needed. I do need to do this. And then we want to make sure we talk through some ways about how.
And that specifically is the most important thing you have to look at. You have to look at real data when it comes to your expenses in order to figure out where you should be priced. But I also think as you are, if you decide you're going to look at this in 2025, I also think it's important to remind yourself of just how much other services cost. Like there's so many chiropractors out there that are of the mind that if we don't keep it affordable enough for a wellness patient to come in weekly or bi-weekly, well, then they're never going to stick around. But these same people are going out and they're spending $50 a month on a manicure. And, like that is not, in my mind, that's not even technically a professional service, right? And 50 might even be low, in depending on where you live, they might be spending way more than that on a manicure. And so I always try to help our clients put it through that lens of just how much time and energy you put to be able to take care of your patient's health. You have invested countless hours, you've invested hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I think if we have this mindset that we have to keep our prices so affordable, or like no one's going to continue with care, like that is just setting yourself up to be Walmart. And I never want to be like the Walmart of chiropractic, right? I would much prefer, we'll run with this, everybody. I'd much prefer to be Target. Okay. Let's just be honest. Especially for the ladies listening, they're like, yeah, I never want to go to Walmart ever again. So just don't be afraid. If you're so afraid to change your prices, then you probably have a self-worth, self-esteem problem. And that is actually the root of the issue. And so, that's one of the many reasons why, coaching, consulting, mentorship, whatever you want to call it, however you, invest in it is important, because a lot of chiropractors, we have this, it's a second-class citizen complex, if you will, right? And if you don't eradicate that early in your business, it's going to continue to bite you in the rear. And not only that, but also your team members and your family. And, it just continues this perpetual cycle. So you have to know what you have to offer. You have to honor it. You have to value it, and you have to charge accordingly.
Yeah. The other thing too is that, some of it may come back to education or people really understanding what chiropractic care is and does, right? And ongoing care and that kind of stuff. And do they understand the effect it has on immunity? Do they understand the effect it has on stress reduction? Do they understand the effect it has on sleep? Because if you really look at the marketplace right now, red light therapy, cold plunge, all, infrared saunas, like this stuff is taking off because people are very aware of biohacking and, self-care, all these kind of things. Do they view chiropractic care in that same lens? Because if they do, they will spend, like, our services are valuable in that, but they have to understand big picture. It isn't about like, oh, my back doesn't hurt and I don't need it anymore. How does it fit into their lifestyle? How does it fit into those things? Because the world right now is searching for a lot of that stuff. They just have to understand how we fit into it.
So really, the first thing you can look at is just what's your overall pricing structure right now? We are big advocates for having two different pricing structures, one for when someone is under more of an acute care or whatever you want to call it in your office. We both call it a restoration type plan, because we're taking their nervous system from point A to point B. We're restoring some additional bandwidth and adaptability in that initial care plan. So that's a different set of fees in both of our offices than once they're transitioned to wellness care, or again, whatever you want to call that phase of care. Those are two separate price points. And I would say one of the most common mistakes that you can look at and see if you are making is you do really well on that first set. Like you have a really, profitable setup with that initial care plan, but then you drop it like so low, like a very, membership kind of bottom of the barrel model to wellness. And that is a recipe for your conversions to wellness are going to be amazing. You're going to retain everyone because you're priced too low. And so then you're going to end up scaling to this super high place, and burning yourself and any other doctors out in the process, while also decreasing the amount of time you have available to actually see the new patients for those initial care plans that are really profitable. So you're going to basically drown your profitability and drown your energy.
Yeah.
That's what we've seen over and over.
Big time. And so what also we'll see is that someone will really prop up like, we have a $300 new patient visit and we charge, $90 an adjustment and $200 for scans. And they're they're in that restoration care. It's like all these big numbers, right? Yet they're 90% wellness and visits during the week, and those wellness numbers are in the tank, and they can't figure out why their OVA or office visit average, what they're charging for visit is so low. So it's another thing to look at too, is that maybe this is okay and this one's bad, but you have such a high volume wellness practice that this is really drowning you out, right? So usually what we'll see with that is you'll see it like, oh, but my number isn't terrible. Yeah, but like if you could get this right, like that's really going to make the difference, because really that office visit average, if you have kind of those restoration type fees and wellness fees, is a combination of those two fees. And the percentage that you have in each part is really going to determine where that number falls. So you really, really have to be careful about that, especially the longer in your practice, maybe the more those wellness care stuff you have around, you can really start to see those numbers, kind of trickle downward, not because you're doing anything other than the fact that your percent wellness is getting bigger and those numbers aren't right. So you really have to look at, if you do have that, like most offices we talk to do, you really have to make sure both numbers are okay. Like, where is it where both numbers are okay? A question we get a lot is, where should that number be? What should an office visit average be? That's a really hard question to answer in a vacuum, right? Without knowing a lot of things. Do you accept insurance? Where do you live? Is it New York City, Vancouver, or is it the middle of Iowa? All that's going to determine it, right? But if you're still like a cash family wellness based office and you're not over 40, even 45 in that number, like you are leaving something on the table and you really need to improve that.
Yeah, I'm so glad you said that, because that's the number I had in my head as you were talking. I was just going to say, we're going to give you some things you can look at to start analyzing on your own. But obviously this is tricky. And this is one of the biggest reasons why people hire people like us to help consult them through these things. And so there's lots of different variables that impact what you should charge and how you should proceed with this thought process. So without that, I think the most important thing for you to hear on this episode is just, if your OVA is under $40, I don't care if you live in a place that has a median household income of $40,000. Like, I don't think it should be lower than $40, your OVA. Like, that is just like the baseline, the bottom of the barrel, if you will. And so that honestly means that you should not have many, if any, SKUs, if you will, in your practice that are under $40. Like, there just shouldn't be. And I understand that makes it hard. I hear this over and over again of like, I have such a heart for caring for full families. And if I have a family of 7 and, I never have an adjustment that's lower than $40, well, all of them can't come in. And I totally get that. And I understand that. And I love like your heart. My answer to that typically is like, if you want to do that now as you're building and scaling your practice, go for it. But just know it's not a sustainable model. And you are going to get to a point in the future where you cannot, you physically cannot let those spaces be filled with someone who is paying you. I mean, I see this all the time, $19, $20, $21 an adjustment. You just really have to ask yourself if that value exchange feels good, and if you're telling the universe what you're worth, and if you're scaling appropriately with that thought process in mind.
Yeah. And with that too, I love the heart. I love that you brought that up, that people have. But the problem is if you don't have a sound business, you won't be able to care for these people. And what Chrissy said is, over time, what happens is resentment sets in, and you're like resenting now that like you are crazy busy. You can't not be at work, but you're not making any money. And that sets in and it affects everybody in your practice. We would rather, and Chrissy said it well, when people hire us to kind of help really do this stuff, let's get your business right. Let's make sure this is right. So if there's a family come in that's a hardship and you have this thing for them, you have a fund set up that you can help offset, and you can give them something to do it, because your business is so strong, because you're running strong. You're living in a place of abundance. You are not, in that place where you have to take everybody and everybody's free. And you have a way to be able to honor and value those people that need it, not the other way around. Not where everybody's getting it and you're drowning in your own, anxiety and stress and business and all this kind of stuff. Let's make sure we get to that point.
So next steps for you, if you're listening to this and you're like, oh, I do need to look at this. I know my profit margin isn't where it needs to be. Figure out that
Thanks for tuning in to the Pull Up a Chair Show.
Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the show on your favorite platform, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.
If you found value in today's episode, please share it with a colleague. We would be honored.
To connect with us, you can find us on IG at The Pursuit Kairos, or you can email us at connect@thepursuitkairos.com.
Using in comparison, it's like a pretty decent margin, especially as you scale. So if you want that 30% margin, well, now you can take a peek at all of your different pricing structures, or if you just have one, whatever it may be, and just look at, are you maintaining that throughout all of your different SKUs, or different types of adjustments or other things that you offer? And if not, what are the areas that you want to increase, by how much, and whatnot. And one of the things we hear often is people have a really large jump that needs to happen. They realize, I've seen this in lots of practices. I've been here in my own practice, we're making $2 profit on this one, fourth family member wellness, or let's call it, or whatever it is, right? However you have your pricing set up. And it's like, we need to right-size this price by a lot. We are, again, of the mind, like, it's hard to answer in a vacuum, but oftentimes you're better to kind of rip the Band-Aid off and just right-size it. You always have the opportunity to, if you want to leave some of your existing people on an old system for a period of time, you could totally do that. But I personally prefer to just make it work so that you don't have to talk to them this year. Now I'm talking to them again next year. It just drags on. And I like to just make whatever needs to happen, and then move forward. And if you're going to do that, as Jake said, obviously this is a common time when we're recording this, but I personally think springtime is one of the best. I have talked to clients over the years and basically said anywhere from springtime to November, I think you're pretty safe to change your pricing. I don't really love seeing anyone change their pricing in December, January, even early February, just because of the holiday. The holidays are coming up and people's budget gets tighter going into that. And then same thing kind of coming out of it. So I personally like to just give that little 8 to 10 week chunk as a time that I wouldn't necessarily tackle these conversations, but that's just my 2 cents on the timing, especially if you're listening to this early in a year.
Yep. And the other thing to know too, that a lot of people, when they really dig into this, because they haven't in a while, they actually need to increase both. They need to increase wellness and they need to increase their top end. It's always easier to increase the restoration phase, or again, whatever you call it, because it's just anybody new coming in that's just, they don't know the difference. They don't have anything to compare it to. Easier to do that. So maybe you want to start there, right? And I would actually do them separate. Do this, give it some time to breathe, and then fix this one. Or if you have a ton of wellness and that's what needs to happen first, well, then fix that one first. Give it, time to settle, dust settle in your office, and then do the other one. But know that you can do both of them, within a few months. You know what I mean? You could do actually both of them at the same time. It's just staff wise, maybe questions coming in, figuring out systems. Maybe you want to give a little breathing room between the two of them, but those are 2 separate conversations. It's different people. It's people that are already on your wellness, people going into your wellness, and brand new. You can do both of those. You could do one March 1st, one April 1st, but just allowing yourself a little breathing room and time just to kind of let the dust settle on that. But promise you, this is one thing to where you'll look at, if you can right size this, if you can right size this, you may have a 5 to 10% drop in your patients, which you probably won't, but if you do, and you'll still be making more money at the end of the day. And then getting that right to then when you add more people in it is going to feel so much better for you.
Yeah. So only other 2 quick things I have on this, just so that you can go and start thinking about what you need to do. We see a lot of people giving away free care for some type of demographic, whether it be kids or newborns or, whatever it may be. So that's something.
Or boost adjustments or whatever,
Yeah.
There's something that's free in there,
Yes. And we are both of the mind of that is also not very sustainable. and not the best value exchange. So we are always advising people to try to make sure that they are avoiding that unless it's something very specific, like Jake mentioned before, where it's like a scholarship for a hardship situation. That's a completely different animal. And then another thing that I see often is, especially in family practices or pediatric practices, you are always giving kids a discount. It's like, the restoration plan adjustments are $60 for adults and $40 for kids. That sucks mainly just because we understand your heart and the thought process in that. But just remember, you have invested, again, countless hours and dollars to be able to care for kids, to give them an appropriate exam, to give them an appropriate adjustment and care plan. And so in my mind, it almost should be more expensive for a child to be seen. And so we both really prefer, if you're going to do anything to just help see a full family, just give a tiered price based on how many family members are already under your care. And as long as you are providing the exact same opportunities for those prices to every family across the board, you should be totally fine. Again, disclaimer, like, we're not experts of, I don't even know, what is it, like the Office of Inspector? I don't even know what
Check with your state, right?
Yeah,
Check, make sure you're
out if that's okay. But that is a better way for you to scale your practice and still give family discounts. So just again, that kind of goes back to that second class citizen mindset. If you feel like you need to give stuff away, then that needs to be evaluated, and get someone on your team that can help you and be in your corner to help work through some of those thought processes.
And as always, if you have really specific questions on that, reach out, DM us, that kind of stuff. I mean, we've had clients that, this is like a $50,000 to $70,000 swing. You know what I mean? So it's a really big thing to where if you need some more help on us, make sure you let us know, and, we can answer anything we can quickly, or if we need to dive into it more specific with you, we can. But this is a big one. Make sure you're taking care of yourself. Make sure you're taking care of your team. This allows you to pay your team better. This allows you to make sure you get that amazing team and support help, and, take a vacation with your family maybe or something. So this is a big one.
All right, everybody. Happy right sizing. Make sure that changes where it needs to be. You're worth it. You're providing a service that is truly changes the trajectory of families' health. So don't forget that when you are setting this value exchange, so you can lay your head down at the pillow at night and make sure that everything feels good. So we'll see you next time.
See you guys.
Thanks for tuning in to the Pull Up a Chair Show.
Whether you're watching on YouTube or listening to the show on your favorite platform, make sure you hit subscribe so you never miss an episode.
If you found value in today's episode, please share it with a colleague. We would be honored.
To connect with us, you can find us on IG at The Pursuit Kairos, or you can email us at connect@thepursuitkairos.com.